Guys, you might have seen recently I uploaded a video about potentially the best update of all time. Now we're doing a 180 because the game might be getting the worst update of all time coming soon. Buckle up guys, it's about to get crazy. So what deck is actually adding is enchantments, and I'm really open to games having an enchantment update in general because they're a good way to spice up the drops you get in the game and allow you to upgrade your gear further sometimes. But the way it's getting added to Realm is so damaging and really boring. So in case you're not familiar with enchantments, it's a way that you can add stats or other effects to your items. And in Realm, there's a bit of a difference between tiered items and UTs. For the tiered items, it's kind of boring. You can get like a +7 vitality boost or +7% damage boost on your items, or like 80 HP. This is the numbers from testing, by the way. But you can still have more interesting enchantments like damage procs. Like if you take, for example, like 50 damage, you can increase your attack by 5 temporarily, and some other ones that weren't featured in testing, but they mentioned it in the blog post, like for example, decreased mana cost, better stat scaling, and increased AoE radius. UT enchantments are a bit more interesting and balanced most of the time. For every positive effect, it does come with a negative. So for example, there's this one where it decreases weapon projectile shot size and damage, but increases the fire rate and the projectile speed. But then there's more unbalanced ones like the ones for tiered, where it just adds defense and on-hit heals for some reason. So how do you get enchantments on your items? You'd probably assume it would be like the dungeon mod update, where when you find an item, it gains positive and negative enchantments, and you kind of want to find items with the positive enchantments you like and negative enchantments that you don't really mind. But no, they are locking enchantments behind an NPC that is in the vault and only on seasonal characters. What you have to do is you have to collect a new currency called dust. There's 3 different types and we're not too sure how to collect it yet. This is what the enchantment menu looks like. As you can see, you need to spend dust to open the slots in the top right, and afterwards spend more dust and maybe other currencies to then apply to enchantments, which you can see in the bottom right. Now an item has to generate with slots to be able to unlock them. In testing, tier 12, tier 13 and tier 14 items spawned with 0 to 4 slots, and all UTs spawned with 1 slot. And you can't stack the same enchantments, but you kind of can. I'll show you what I mean in a sec. Now you might already be seeing a couple of issues with this system. Some tier 14 items are already best in slot or near best in slot, like for example the tier 14 staff and the tier 14 flail. So the fact that you can increase your power level higher than ever before in a game where everyone already feels really strong and demolishes any content that's not in-game feels kind of silly, doesn't it? Now you the viewer might be like, but Seb, you can't stack effects. The most you'd be getting is at least a 10% damage boost. Now, 10% is a lot if you think about it, and there technically isn't stat stacking, but for example for damage and for defense, there is different enchantments that you can lay on and stack on top of each other to basically do the same thing as stack damage boosts. Like for example, in this video, Sent YT or YouTube, don't know how to pronounce it, but something like that, showed how you can put a 7 dex enchantment, a 7 attack enchantment, 8% more damage, and 9% more fire rate on a single weapon. Let me show you how this looks with a DPS calculator. So we're copying this priest with a recomp, then we're putting 7 extra attack and dex on the second one. Now, if we calculate the damage difference so far, just the stats that it's adding, it's already 21% more damage from the enchantments, which is already more than upgrading from a tier 12 to a tier 14. But wait, we're not close to done. Now let's also add in the 8% damage and 9% fire rate increase, which doubles it again to a 42% damage increase.
What?
Now the update did say the numbers aren't final, but even if it was a third of what's in testing, it's so stupid, because if you were to get those stacked stats on a tier 12 for example, it's better than using a tier 14. And then you can add those enchantments to a tier 14 to make tier 14 wand the best in the game basically. Man, I don't understand this shit at all. I don't understand. Even the creator of Moonlight Village had their concerns. They're referring to the update, saying the game cannot support it, and it is a foolish undertaking. Definitely in agreement there, because every class is in a good place right now, and you could tear through enemies if you have endgame gear right now. And yeah, as you can show with the graph they made, it's kind of opinion based, but it just brings another massive spike to player power, which the game cannot support there, right? It's also the same for HP. In testing, someone made a UBHP that gave 350 HP instead of the standard 180 HP. Now, that's insane, and it definitely won't make it to the game, so, because it is testing, they were just trying out the system, but even if we pretend that you can only add one of these HP boosts, and even more generous of us to assume that it's the lowest one out of these enchantments, but knowing that you can add it to the robe and the tome as well, it still adds an extra 120 HP for nothing! The reason why this is a concern is the hardest phases in the game right now are the ones that sicken you, so you have to roll with the base HP pool that you have, and you can't heal during that phase. So for example, like the hard mode shadows phase comes to mind, and the Moonlight Village phases, especially the Yuumi phases, who's currently the hardest boss in the game. The best of players try to find gear that can increase their base HP by even 40 HP. You'll see good players, for example, if they're using a Paladin for Yuumi, bring a Sandstone Seal, which is usually a pretty bad item, but it can be a substitute for endgame items because it just gives you 40 base HP to place on top of you. But yeah, to get this 120 HP when it's not even like natural stats from items, wow, that is... Oh man, what? It can also just help with generally being in hard phases, because pets are pretty crazy, as you know, so just to make you be able to live while you're in a dangerous situation, to then be able to heal it all back up to full health is crazy. So players struggling to do endgame content, or just staying alive in general, might feel like they need these enchantments at any cost. Guys, this update is looking as bad as the fact that you're not subscribed to me yet, even though you watch so many of my videos. It's free, guys, just subscribe! Which brings us to potentially an even more dangerous issue, the massive potential for pay to win. Realm of the Mad God is already a game that's very well known for being pay to win. Some people might argue semantics and say there's no way that you can win in this game, so you can't pay to win. Technically true, but you can gain a massive advantage from paying in the game, which might discourage other people from playing that aren't willing to spend as much money. And this is pretty well known. It's so well known, in fact, that a lot of popular creators recognize that as well, which might be pushing them away from the game. Definitely is, actually, because here's a clip of a streamer who streamed Realm for like 70 hours in a single week to his average audience of 1,000 people a few months ago, and then stopped.
What is Realm of Mad God?
Don't. Well, one, you'll crash the servers, but two, don't. It's an MMORPG bullet hell, but trust me, the game it's full of cheaters, but the concept itself is really cool. And the company is just money hungry, so yeah.
That's an example of how the monetization in Realm is stopping the spread of the game, because there could be some massive issues if XQC ever played Realm, but it would be a net positive undoubtedly. And yeah, because of the monetization and the other issues that he mentioned, it kind of became a meme to hate on Realm. Like for example, if you ever see a beginner asking for recommendations generally about the game, you'll see people commenting, quit the game, uninstall, shit like this. You don't see that with many other games. No one is proud or willing to admit they like this game. I will admit it sometimes, and there would be some people that would, but generally, even if you are someone that plays this game a lot, it's kind of embarrassing to admit. Like, I've been meeting a lot of other Twitch partners recently, and we'll get into conversations about how we got Twitch partner. Someone will say he streamed COD, and that's what got him to Twitch partner eventually. Someone will say they've been streaming OSRS. Another person will be saying they stream FIFA or Valorant, and then they'll come around to me, the Realm of the Mad God streamer, and I will be like, you know, I just streamed this game. It's like a pixel bullet hell MMO. Please don't ask any further. I don't want you to know about it. But yeah, let me be honest. I'm being extremely skeptical when I say this update is going to be pay to win, but there's so many hints that it will be. I'll get into those in a moment, but one of the first reasons is that Deca's monetization makes Diablo Immortal look like a charity. I would note every single way that you could pay for an advantage over other players in Realm of the Mad God, but then I would get depressed and the video would extend for another 20 minutes. So instead, let me illustrate this by showing you an NPC that is very similar to the one that's going to come for the enchantments. It's just on the other side of the vault, the Forge. Now, there's a bit of a rumor that Deca designed how to monetize the update before actually finalizing how the Forge is going to work, because they put in some hoops that you have to jump through that might incentivize you to spend money because they're so inconvenient. Like, for example, they thought the Clash of Clans system was so cool that when you upgrade a town hall, you have to wait for it to actually finish. So they decided to add Forge Fire, which is like this resource that that you get 300 per day, and that limits you from how many times you can enchant unless you spend money. You gotta admit that would not be in the game if it wasn't for the purpose of monetization. Number 2, you can basically buy white bags if they're going to be used for crafting, because you can buy these resources that can fill in the slots that would normally be used for whites. Like for example, the legendary ore and the gold ore. The legendary ore replaces an item that could be from the shadows, the fungal cave-in, all these super rare items that could take you. It would take you at least 3 to 5 hours to get one of these, so you can spend money to save that much time. And then the third thing is that you need these blueprints. You can get blueprints as a drop in the game, but to save that time as well, you could just buy them from the bazaar or from the in-game shop. And I'm gonna be honest, this is one of the systems in the game that is much less pay to win compared to other ones, like the ST sets, the dungeon mods, and the pet system is way worse. But it doesn't stop them from making these annoying as fuck ads pop up for the Forge. So yeah, the Forge created all these weird currencies like the Forge Fire and the resources just so they can monetize them. So if we compare the Forge to the Enchanter, there's a lot of resources that don't make any sense that are added, and they will most likely monetize them. Like, no one knows how to get dust yet, but I bet you that they'll add something like the sulfur that gives you this dust currency. And there's 3 different types to be extra annoying, so you might have to like farm 3 different dungeons or something to get it through the game naturally, or you could just buy it. That's my guess. Then there's also the fact that items spawn with slots. How was that fun? Why was that a good idea? There was no way they were designing this and is like, this is going to increase enjoyment for the player. I'm guessing that they're gonna make it that you could also open the slots with money as well, even if the item doesn't spawn with those slots. That's just my guess. But yeah, pay to win games often do this, where they add currencies to obfuscate how much you're actually spending on the game. Because like for example, in a Realm of the Mad God, you can't buy an ST set for $160, even though that when there is a brand new ST set and there's the ST story campaign, whatever it's called, that actually does cost you $160 to complete the whole thing, but instead it's in Realm Gold, so you're not 100% sure how much you're spending. You see the same thing in other games like Genshin Impact with crystals, Genesis crystals, sorry, or Diablo Immortal with eternal orbs. But yeah, last issue with this update is that it's fucking boring. It's so lame. It could be so cool. Like for example, imagine how awesome and balanced it would be if you go into a realm and any item that you pick up can have an enchantment, a positive and a bad one. We wouldn't be arguing about the balance of enchantments if every item spawned with a negative enchantment to counterbalance it the positive one, just like with dungeon mods. That would be so fun, man. I don't know if you know, but they added shinies to this game, which have like a 1 in 10 chance of dropping in the place of the normal whites, and no one cares. I don't know many people who are actually farming for shinies, but I could see myself farming color swords all day if you could get a cool positive enchantment like a burn that applies 10% of the color sword's damage over 5 seconds, while also looking for a negative enchantment that doesn't hurt the item too much, like lower projectile speed. But no, you know why they only want to add positive enchantments. You know the reason. But why is it only locked to UTs and tiered items over the tier of 12? And it's behind this NPC and this dust shit and this slot shit. It's so obvious that it's supposed to be really monetized. And enchantments should be available to everyone, not only seasonal characters, and not only players that get tier 12s and above as drops, but it should apply to everyone, including beginners. Like imagine how fun enchantments would be if you go into a realm, you find a tier 5 staff, and yeah, instead of it just being your old regular tier 5 staff, you want to check every single item, because it could have a plus 10% fire rate boost, but minus 10, I don't know, whiz, or something like that. I'd take that. You'll only notice this update if you go into the vault on a seasonal character and jump through the hoops that Deca wants you to, or spend money to get access to it. It makes 0 sense for Deca to be suggesting such an unbalanced update and such a boring update with so many annoying hoops you have to jump through unless they want to over monetize it. And guys, I'm only preemptively complaining about this so much because I really don't want it to come to the game, but I have a feeling it will, and I really hope that Deca embarrasses me and the update has no pay to win, because then everyone wins except for me, and I'll take that sacrifice, man. But if this update does come out in this way, I'll be an oracle, because this wouldn't be the first time I predicted something like this. Here's an interesting fact. If you didn't know, Deca actually tried to release enchantments 2 years ago for Month of the Mad God, and it actually didn't look that bad, because there wasn't any NPC in the vault yet, it wasn't locked behind a seasonal mode, and it looked like any item that dropped on the ground could get enchantment by how they displayed it in the trailer. And even though they didn't put an NPC in the Nexus or anything, I actually made a video predicting that because of an item that was in the XML files for testing, I actually predicted the exact tile that the NPC would be on 2 years ago, and it's coming true. And my video wasn't actually that critical on enchantments. I just said that it might be really imbalanced, because it is. Even at that time, we didn't see any negative enchantments counterbalancing the positive ones. But yeah, there was a lot of backlash from the community. Not as much as I thought there would be, but they still caved and they delayed the update. And it looks like they didn't change anything, to be honest. It looks like they made it worse, actually. My prediction is that if this update comes out, they'll bring out the shiny realm rework update that very little chance for it to have any monetization. Maybe they can release like private realms with it, and they'll make this look really nice for Month of the Mad God. It will be like the update that you want to come to see. And then there will be the enchantment system, which is the crazy pay-to-win update that they will like hide, but it will be like another thing they'll mention that's coming for Month of the Mad God. Another prediction for you. And yeah, it's such a shame because even I'm so hyped for the realm rework, and it seems like you guys were too. I read all the comments and I replied to as many as I could, and yeah, it looks like you guys are super excited. It will be so sad to see so many returning players come to the game and all these new players come to the game which is already over monetized, just to see another system which makes the company look even more greedy than they already are. When they find out that they can increase their weapon damage by 20% for $200. Guys, comment on the video what you think. While you're down there, you might as well like the video and make your voice heard, because I think this update could be a lot less monetized, a lot more balanced, sorry, and a lot more fun. Like, they must have been trolling when designing this. Make sure to chat about this on Reddit, Discords, streams, MySpace, and yeah, check out my stream. I might be streaming right now, so make sure to go follow and check if I'm live. Also, big shout out to my supporters, especially my biggest ones from Patreon and Twitch. We have Flerfler, Megabaron, Aratthe, McDraft, Eilwyrm, Tubert, Guardian, Erazor, Jointiq, Pogflakes, Flamigo, Mousepouch, Lodi, Commander K22, Shashilien, Saleh, and bjtchhh. Don't know how else I could say that username without being rude, but there you go. It was a pleasure, guys. Peace.